Okay. Good morning, everyone. And to this video, I am your speaker. My name is Patrick Imlotero. I am from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. And in this video, I'm going to talk about inductive teaching. And we're going to discuss what is inductive teaching, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages of this inductive teaching. So, what is inductive teaching? Inductive teaching is more on student-centered. Students need to learn new things and gain knowledge by themselves. And to explain further, it involves a process whereby an educator provides examples or a model is already given, and a rule where it's determined or inferred by the students. It's important to know that this method is commonly referred to as discovery teaching as well, and it makes sense why. The underlying process is one in which the teacher would present their students with specific examples and encourage them to discover or infer the underlying rule based on the information before them. In this way, you're motivating your students to partake in an exercise of natural discoveries. With that information, and to make it short, inductive teaching is when the students learn by herself or himself. He or she doesn't really rely on the help of the teacher. The teacher will just give a little clue about this certain information, about this certain lesson, and the rest will be task of the student. And we're going to discuss how does inductive teaching differ from deductive teaching. So deductive teaching is essentially the inverse of inductive teaching, whereby a teacher would provide specific rule and the students would be required to apply these rules to their examples and questions. So deductive teaching is more likely it would make the students dependent to their teacher. They will rely so that they could catch or they could understand what is really implied in this instruction. So to have a compare and contrast between the two, between the inductive and deductive teaching, inductive teaching is more on student-centered, deductive is teacher-centered. Inductive teaching would make the learner or the students independent. It will raise their motivation to study alone, self-reliance, and while deductive teaching, it makes them to seek for guidance, rather perhaps a help from the teacher, so that they know what exactly the thing that they should do. So now let's talk about the advantages of inductive teaching. The first advantage of inductive teaching: rules learners that discover, or the rules that discovered by the learners themselves are more meaningful and more memorable. This indeed makes sense, and this indeed true, for the reason that when you are a learner, for example, if I'm a learner and I discover a particular self alone with all myself, it will be easy for me to remember that particular thing, and I think I would stand that this particular thing will last inside my mind, or it will last in my knowledge, because this particular thing is discovered within the capability or capacity of my own searching of this particular knowledge. The second advantage of inductive teaching: students are more actively involved in the learning process. And it's very true. As I'm saying, this kind of teaching method is student or learner-centered teaching. The learner will be the one to interact and discovering new things, and it will make them to be enthusiastic on the engagement of the things that would be discussed or the things that would be tackled. Another advantage of inductive teaching, number 3, students will have a greater self-reliance and autonomy, which is raise a great point. Why? If you really understand the concept of inductive teaching, you will realize that you're raising the learner to become more independent. Self-reliance is also important in order to grow and learn in a way that you're the one who's making the process of learning. And another one, inductive teaching, one of its advantage is it helps the development of our learners' high order thinking skills to see patterns and analyze the same. In order to arrive at generalization requires analytical thinking. But everything has its own weakness. So we're going to talk about the disadvantages of inductive teaching. Number 1, students may hypothesize the wrong rules or judgment, which is also true because this states about a greater possibility of a particular circumstance. Since they are learning by themselves, it's hard to avoid for the learners to make wrong judgment in a specific manner. This shows one of the flaws or defects that inductive teaching has. Another disadvantage is that it can place a heavy demand on the teachers in planning a lesson for the reason that the teacher competencies will be based on the knowledge and capability of the learners. When the teacher discovers that these were bounds the learner's knowledge, then the teacher needs to make an adjustment or to decide where the teacher should start on his or her lessons, which is another I would say that it has a high percentage of making these statements true, because if I am a teacher and I let my students to engage in inductive teaching, and afterwards I saw that these are the things that have done with my students, and I will see with my eyes that these are the things that they are lacking, and these are the things that they need to learn. That's why it will place a heavy demand for planning a lesson, because if me as a teacher, if I saw that, oh, they need to learn this, they need to start from this before taking this one, like that. So it will be based on the learner's capability and in their knowledge alone, so that the teacher would know where to start and how to make a lesson plan. Another disadvantage of inductive teaching is that time and energy spent working out rules may mislead students into believing that rules are the objectives of learning. Just like what on the first statement of the disadvantages, there's a high possibility that a learner will believe or stand on his or her discovery. With this reason, it will cause misleading, since the focus of the learners is on their lesson alone, and when they discover these things, it will be based on their own instinct of learning. So if I would elaborate more, I think it's very negative in a sense that because it's very negative to the sense that they believe that it is right because it is inductive teaching. It is where the students have to discover the rules, which is indeed not 100% right. So sometimes it's hard to avoid misleading in this inductive teaching. That was the advantages and disadvantages of inductive teaching. So inductive teaching, this kind of teaching method is seen and already applied in our educational setting. The teachers adopted this kind of teaching method for the reason that they believe that this method is also effective in some way of learning. There are a lot of ways in teaching, and inductive teaching is one of them. I will give an example on when will inductive teaching will become effective in a classroom setting. So now I'm going to give an example of inductive teaching. So the first step is that the teacher will show different pictures or images of different animals, and the teacher will say that these animals can be seen in different places or they live in different environment. So that's the first step. And so when the teacher said that these animals can be seen in different places, that is, let's just say, a minor clue or rule that the students or learners need to follow. And the second step is that have the students arrange them into groups. So after the teacher show those different pictures, the teacher will give them 10 different images of different species. The students will decide on what they should do in order to organize and to know where these different species are located. And third, have them label it. After grouping or arranging the set of animals, the students will label these animals and will determine their sizes. So we don't know if they are if the learners is thinking about these stuffs, or if they're thinking about how they should organize this set of animals, if they are tiny, if are the giants, like that. So, and the fourth step is that let them make a conclusion. The teacher would do nothing. Only in the first step the teacher will have a voice, but the rest will be on the hand of the learners. So finally, the students will say, so finally, as a result of our group's effort, these animals have been organized. These animals belong or dwell in water or cold weather, while these animals live on land or in a hot weather. These animals come in variety sizes, and each one is found in a specific location. So, for me, that is inductive teaching, because the teacher didn't say that organize this one, make them in a group, or put them on where sizes did do belong. No, because the teacher only said that these animals can be seen in different locations. That was the teacher said. That is why this inductive teaching, because the conclusion or the rules, the judgment were given by the learners, and that's how inductive teaching. That's all, everyone. I hope you learned something about inductive teaching, and once again, I am Patrick Lotero. Thank you for listening.